Hello, and welcome to Game Time. I'm your host, Derek Seldon. Today we'll be covering several hot topics among the sports world. First, we'll be covering the NBA playoff picture, along with the NBA playoff race. We will also be covering the NFL draft coming up on April 30th, and also some questionable signings amongst some controversial players in the NFL free agency. I'm here with Junell Henry, Connor Falaguerra, and Enock Saint-Juste. So let's get started with the NBA playoff picture. So, June, who's your pick coming out the East?
Out of the East, I honestly was feeling Brooklyn for many reasons. One, they got a young team, and they're making a lot of good developments. You know, I like how they're playing together, and, you know, I feel like they can make it out. I mean, if they can get past the first round, I feel like they got a good chance coming out.
Okay. Connor?
Out of the East, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have an all-star cast over there with LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love. I know Kevin Love's not been doing that great this year, but I feel like with Kyrie's season this year, he can lead them to a great run in the playoffs.
All right. Enoch?
Gotta go with the Chicago Bulls. I feel like the Bulls, they really don't have a limit to what they can do. I mean, with Derrick Rose coming back, they have leadership now. And even without Derrick Rose, they've proven they can overcome the odds. So I've got to go with Chicago.
Okay. I myself have picked the Cleveland Cavaliers as well for some of the reasons that you stated, Connor. LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, and the additional signings of J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert along with Timothy Mozgov, I think, will ultimately bring them into the NBA Finals coming out of the East. On the Western Conference, Enoch, what you got?
Western Conference, that's a tough one. You know, I've got to stick to Old Glory and say the San Antonio Spurs because, the Spurs they haven't had their best season. However, we've seen them prove that they can defy whatever their record was in the season and go on to win it all. Right. So I feel like why count the Spurs out, especially when you haven't seen a dramatic drop-off in their work rate. The Spurs have been playing really good defense lately. I've got to go with them.
Okay. Connor?
Well, no surprise here. I think I'm going to go with Golden State Warriors. Okay. They have, each year, I think they have gone further and further in the playoffs, and I think it's their time to go. They have Steph Curry, who is in the MVP race right now. He's putting up big numbers, has great assists. Just give him the ball and he'll shoot it anywhere in the court. They have the number one points per game with 109.6 points per game. And then they let up 99.3 game, which is 14th ranked, which is all right, but I feel like they have a better defense this year than they've had years past, and I feel like they can go further in the playoffs than anybody else.
Joe?
I also have to agree with Connor because, you know, the combination of Klay Thompson, I mean, like they said, they can shoot anywhere. You have to look at the fact that Golden State has beaten more teams by 21 points than they have losses this year. Yeah. So that fact alone, it's an amazing stat. So I don't think, if you give them home court advantage anywhere, I'm pretty sure they're going to take it all. I don't think anybody's better than Steph Curry this year. No one's playing better as a team than the Golden State Warriors.
I personally believe, I agree with Golden State. I see San Antonio. I mean, they're a perennial power in the West and the NBA in general. I say watch out for the LA Clippers. They're fifth seeded right now in the West, but watch out for the Clippers. Got Chris Paul. He's kind of under the microscope right now as a point guard and a veteran player that hasn't taken his team very far within the playoffs overall in his career. I think he's ready to lead them now. And you got Blake Griffin that's come back now from his elbow surgery. True. You got DeAndre Jordan, who's a force down low. Jamal Crawford, arguably the sixth man of the year every year, essentially. J.J. Redick is shooting the ball lights out. So, I mean, you got to look out for the Clippers. They're fifth seeded, but you got to remember the West is a tough conference, much tougher than the East.
Absolutely. The Spurs are sixth place, yet they have a better record than every team in the East besides the Atlanta Hawks, who are number one.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
It's funny how none of us said the Atlanta Hawks would take it all in the East.
And they're number one seed, which is crazy.
I think it comes down to how playoff ready they are, and I think, you know, give them another year, give them a few more years of consistency. Then I would, you know, bank on them more often. Maybe more people would bank on them. But they're kind of in the same boat as the Toronto Raptors, where it's like, you know, they've had incredible seasons this season. They've gone beyond what probably people would have predicted them to do in the first place. But you know, I wouldn't count them out, but they're just not my pick.
I agree. I mean, I just feel that the Hawks don't have enough experience right now. They don't have enough star power. once you get into the NBA playoffs, it's a totally different animal. I mean, you go from the NBA regular season, which is they're doing great things. I mean, you can't overlook that. The record they have is one that they've never had before. It's second overall in the league, which is nothing to sneeze at. However, once you get into the NBA playoffs, it's a totally different animal. I mean, you got when you got to go up against. I mean, we're pretty much looking at a Atlanta Hawks versus Cleveland Cavaliers is Eastern Conference Finals, and they simply don't match up. I mean, when you come to star power, that we're trying to compare against the Cleveland Cavaliers, it's incomparable. I mean, it's incomparable. So for that simple fact that they don't have the star power that some of the other teams have, and their lack of playoff experience as a unit, I feel that's going to be their demise ultimately. So
You just never know what's going to happen in the playoffs.
Exactly.
And that's why the playoffs, anything can happen.
The playoffs are the playoffs.
Right.
The way I'm looking at it is you also got to realize with the 4 games left, Miami still has a chance to make it. Indiana still has a chance to make it. Paul George, I mean, as he was, he's a dominant player. And I think Dwayne Wade is going to take advantage of the opportunity that he's really trying to make these playoffs, show that he can win it all without LeBron James. You know, that was his team originally, and he wants to prove to probably the world that he's still one of the best shooting guards out there.
Speaking of shooting guards, we've got a slew of them.
Ooh, oh yeah.
in the NBA playoff race. The MVP race. James Harden is my pick. You look at what he's done with Houston. Before last night, they were second overall in the West in the playoff picture. Now they're third. They've been flip-flopping with Memphis all year. He has no team, essentially. Dwight Howard's been hurt. Patrick Beverley's gone out recently. Terrence Jones has gone out for the majority of the year. He's carrying that team by himself. I mean, he's the NBA's leading scorer. I mean, him and Russell Westbrook have been flip-flopping also. But what he's done with the lack of pieces that he has throughout the year, I mean, how can you overlook that? I mean, the tricky thing with the MVP race is, do you pick the player that's most valuable to his team? Do you pick the player who's on the best team, record-wise, which would be Steph Curry? Or do you pick the player who's the best overall player in the league, which many would say is LeBron James still? So, I mean, that's the big question with the MVP race, but I'm leaning more towards who's most valuable to his team and the body of work that they have. I got to go with James Harden. Enoch, what do you have?
I've got to go, and this is something I never thought I'd say. I've got to go with Russell Westbrook.
Okay.
I've got to say he's the MVP of the league because, you know, he has 27.5 points per game as of right now. And, you know, he's really picked up the slack with Durant's injury.
Right.
He's really been able to will them on. In the last 2 months, they've scored 17. They've been 17-7 in the last 2 months. He's really picked up what could have been a colossal failure for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I like to call him Mr. Triple Double because I mean he's been everywhere for his team. I really can't say anything more other than Russell Westbrook is surefire candidate for the MVP.
Connor?
Well, I'm going to have to agree with Enoch. I have to go with Russell Westbrook with all the points that you've said. But I feel like he is way more valuable to his team than James Harden.
Okay.
Because he has 8.6 assists per game. James Harden has 6.9 assists per game. James Harden has a better field goals percentage than Russell Westbrook, but I feel like he sets up players in the right position to play. He has a better point guard ability than James Harden. He has 10 triple doubles, as Enoch says. He's Mr. Triple Double. He had to pick up the slack with Kevin Durant out of the lineup right now, and that's tough because Kevin Durant was the big person in Oklahoma, and we'll see what happens with that.
Joe?
Well, I mean, I can't agree with either of you guys. I still think Steph Curry might be, if not the best player we're going to see this in the next couple of years. Steph Curry is just an administrator of his team. He develops the ball so well, he shoots lights out anywhere. Doesn't matter. He's unguardable in my book. And he allows for the court to be exposed. For me, he can pass the ball as well as anybody in the league right now. He opens the door for Klay Thompson and anybody else on the team. I think it's hard for any other team to adapt to guarding them because he has so much things he can do. He can score anywhere, and he also is a facilitator of the ball. Steph Curry, if he doesn't win the MVP, I'd be surprised. And you can see by the record, Golden State obviously leads the West. Right. So I have my money on Steph Curry.
Wouldn't you agree, though, that Steph Curry has really had a phenomenal cast with him as far as his teammates and Klay Thompson and how incredible he's been this season. When you compare that to the Oklahoma City Thunder, I mean, who really do they have other than Russell Westbrook, who can really be a leader? Which I'm not.
I agree totally.
Just trying to dispel your point.
The way I look at it is because Westbrook, I'm not disagreeing. Westbrook has played tremendously, but I look at it in the sense of he can't do as a player what I believe Steph Curry can do. While he does, Mr. Triple Double, of course, but Steph Curry he's just a major factor in his team. I feel as though if he didn't play as well as he did, his team wouldn't be recognized the way he does. While in the same time, Russell Westbrook is going to be recognized regardless. Steph Curry doesn't play, I feel as though Golden State wouldn't be anything in comparison to if Westbrook played or doesn't play. Durant's still there. You feel me? There's no backup for Golden State compared to there is a backup for OKC.
Good point.
So he's their quarterback essentially.
Yeah,
that's what you're saying.
Yeah, basically, in a sense, I look at it though. If they're both star players are playing, and Durant and in Westbrook, and then you have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. If Curry's not there, that team doesn't win.
Right. I mentioned quarterbacks. Let's get on to the NFL draft coming up April 30th. We got a couple big names. Connor. Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota. Who's number one?
Well, as a lot of people say, Jameis Winston, he's going to go number one. But I feel like the best quarterback out there right now is Marcus Mariota. He's 6'3", 222 pounds. He's very quick. He's like a Russell Wilson, I think. Okay. He definitely, I think he makes smart decisions, smarter than Jameis Winston. He's very accurate. He's more accurate than Jameis Winston. He has a quick release. I feel like Jameis Winston has this low, like Tim Tebow kind of release, but it's a little quicker than Tim Tebow. Yeah. Not just like Tim Tebow. Like Tim Tebow had that slow release.
Right.
But I feel like Jameis Winston is quicker, and he's going to get better at that. Right. But I feel like some troubles with Marcus Mariota is going to be him going under the center.
Right.
Because he only played a shotgun his whole life at Oregon. Learning the pro-style offense. Jameis Winston has that advantage because he played in a pro-style offense at Florida State. And I just feel like with Marcus Mariota, I feel like he's more his ability to roll out of the pocket, step up in the pocket, make plays on the run. I feel like he's a better quarterback than Jameis Winston.
I was over here itching as you said Marcus Mariota was more accurate than Jameis Winston. I completely disagree. Completely. If you watch John Gruden's quarterback camp, and he had Jameis Winston in the building, he had him go through a field workout. He had him throw the ball into a bucket, a net, and hit a pole from about 40 yards out. Hit each one. Mm-hmm. Each one. Mm-hmm. I mean, what more do you want in terms of accuracy? I'm talking about a pole. A pole. I mean, from 40 yards out, that's pretty accurate. As you mentioned, Marcus Mariota's size, Jameis Winston, 6'4", 230. He's a bruiser. He's a bruiser, and he's not slow-footed either. So I think that ultimately will allow him to make more plays on the run. I think as we saw with Johnny Manziel this year, neither of them are him. Let's be clear. Neither of them have the athletic ability that Johnny Manziel had. But you saw that kind of reliance upon his athletic ability, which I think Marcus Mariota, kind of falls under, will ultimately kind of hurt him. That's what happened to Johnny Football. I mean, I believe that Marcus Mariota is much better than he was. However, when you get into the NFL, you've got guys that are bigger and stronger and as fast as you are on the defensive end. You're talking about corners, linebackers, defensive ends now. All of that running is not necessarily going to get you by. So, I mean, when you mentioned Jameis Winston playing in a pro-style offense at Florida State, I think that ultimately will set him apart from Marcus Mariota, which I believe will make him more valuable to a team such as the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have the number one pick, which I believe they will take them. And if they don't, I mean, you got to worry about him burning you when he comes to town. So, Enoch.
I got to agree with you on Jameis Winston. I believe when it comes down to it, our conversation is about how desirable a player is, right. And I just find Jameis Winston to be a cut above Marcus. So I've got to go with him.
Okay, Enoch. Excuse me, Jim.
Yeah, thanks for this, guys. Now, the way I look at it, as a quarterback, it all comes down to clutch. And as a quarterback, I think the more clutch player is obviously Winston.
Right.
But my argument in that sense, I personally like Mariota a lot better because the only difficulty he's gonna have is obviously adjusting to the pro style offense because at Oregon, all he did was he made his quick reads.
Right.
For me, it's just quick reads. Jameis Winston, he went off of his reads and made his development off of him just as a player. But as a quarterback, I think accuracy, footwork, Mariota's a lot better, but I feel like Jameis Winston's a lot more clutch. So it depends on what team he plays for. Like you said, I don't think he's going to be running around trying to scramble all day because you can see what that does to quarterbacks, obviously. But he's definitely going to facilitate the field a lot better. I feel like Mariota will make a lot bigger impact because I think Jameis Winston is just maybe not ready yet. But at the same time, I still think, they're both going to do well at the end of the day.
Just remember.
So you mentioned.
Just remember. Sorry for interrupting. Yeah. Just remember, Marcus Mariota did beat Jameis Winston in the playoffs.
He did. He did.
So.
Okay, so we mentioned impact players. We mentioned big names. So NFL free agency has passed, and there have been a couple of questionable signings of some controversial players, some guys that have had some off-field problems, namely Greg Hardy, recently signed by the Cowboys, recently has been under the microscope, under fire of the domestic abuse allegations. So the question is, should he or should he not be allowed to be signed by a team in the NFL, period, let alone the Cowboys, who have a great tradition? But should he be in the league at all when he has such a case that's kind of bearing on his shoulders? I mean, of course, legally he's been acquitted of the situation because of all the allegations that have been posed. But should he be allowed to play in the league? I mean, we're at a time now where domestic abuse and domestic violence is a very highly concentrated topic among sports, and something that, of course, goes on daily, and it's something that's terrible. But it's something that now is a lot of emphasis has been put upon it among the sports world. You look at Adrian Peterson, look at Ray Rice, now you've got Greg Hardy as well. So the question remains: do you believe that he should be able to be in the league right now?
Well, this is a tough subject to talk about. It's very dominant in the NFL right now.
Right.
But I feel like if you're a player and you feel like you can play in the NFL, I think he should give another chance.
Okay.
It's tough because there's also a situation with Ray Rice and stuff, and they're trying to have him get another chance, but it's tough because a lot of people are not attracted to him.
Right.
In the Hardy situation, it was not really like you didn't see a video, you didn't see what actually happened.
Right.
There was just some phone calls, possibly. We don't know exactly.
As opposed to Ray Rice.
As opposed to Ray Rice.
Right.
It's just that I feel like you have to just see him move on and to see what it's a good addition for the Cowboys,
Certainly.
but it's just very unattractive because of what he did. So.
Okay. What do you think?
I personally believe it's the wrong place, wrong time situation. Okay. Obviously, domestic violence is never something you want to get involved with. But as an athlete, you have to understand you're being watched.
Right.
I mean, you're a pro athlete. You're being watched at all times. With that being said, you have to learn how to adjust your personal life and your career. This is obviously a job for you. When you want to go out and do certain things, you have to always be wary that people are always watching you. With that being said, a lot of domestic violence cases are difficult to go with because of you're just so not used to that idea. Especially a lot of young athletes.
Okay.
In this case, I look at it though. He is a great athlete. I'm not taking anything away from that. I just feel as though if this had happened years ago, it probably wouldn't have been as effective as it is right now because so many cases are coming out with athletes becoming dead. Like I said, I'm not promoting domestic violence. He's a great athlete. I just feel as though it's the wrong place, wrong time. The only way, and I probably have to agree with you, the only way this is probably going to go through, time is going to have to heal it. Because the NFL, especially the NFL, the way they look at it, if it didn't, it's not necessarily the crime, and this is bad to say, it's not necessarily the crime, it's more or less how much of exposure was to it.
Right.
If it wasn't exposed as much, I feel as though he probably wouldn't be in much trouble as he probably was.
Right.
So.
You're not?
I think, June, you made a great point on the public image side of this for the NFL. When you're in the NFL's shoes, I'm going to put myself in the NFL's shoes, and I'm going to say this, if they have to worry about consistency. Right. They have to worry about okay, look at these past cases and how we've handled them. How are we going to handle this one?
True.
This one is unique because legally he's not guilty for what he did. But when it comes down to it, the NFL made the rules during the Ray Rice situation of, okay, the first domestic count, it's a 6-game suspension. The second one is a lifetime ban. So if they decide to stick to that, then that would probably be best for the NFL. Obviously, this guy, I don't want to judge him personally since I can't just go out and make accusations. However,
Right.
you know, to me, it would, if I were in charge, if I were Roger Goodell, I would not let him in the league, if that were me personally.
It's harsh. It's harsh.
That's just how that's how it is. Because when it comes to the NFL, game, you know, how good you are, how, you know, efficient you are, the stats you make, it's one thing, but the NFL, and it's about branding. It's a commercial. The players they wear advertisements. They are advertised. They represent the league. And you can't have scumbags in the league. You can't. You can't have scumbags in the league. However, I will not be upset if the NFL aren't harsh on him just because legally they can't really say he's guilty.
Right.
However, if the NFL doesn't clamp down, there's going to be a firestorm. You know,
that's the big question. That's the big issue.
To add on to that, I feel like the way I look at it is the best athletes in the NFL and athletes in general realize that this is a career and realize that this isn't just for fun, and they know what situations to put themselves in. So to agree with you, yes, I feel like a lot of athletes, or that if this isn't taken care of the right way, a lot of athletes will be definitely on watch and what they would do next. So
exactly.
Last word? Anything?
No, nothing much. I think it's just tough. That's all I gotta say. You can't. It's hard because there's different opinions about it. He has a strong opinion about it. We have a more lenient opinion about it. It's just the situation.
Right.
It's just tough to talk about.
It is. I mean, it's the time, it's the offense, of course, but as you two mentioned, the emphasis that's being put on domestic violence in the NFL and sports in general is ultimately what's going to make this such a hot topic. Mm-hmm. You know, of course, the offense is bad in and of itself. However, the time period that it's occurred in, the emphasis that the media has put on it, is ultimately what makes it what it is.
I definitely wonder if it was with no media, no cameras like these. Like,
Yeah.
I wonder what it would be like. Like, this
Right.
is huge. It blows up big time.
It does. All right, so that's all our time for tonight. For June Henry, Connor Falaguerra, and Enock Saint-Juste, I'm Derek Seldon, and this is Game Time. And we are done.